Hello, welcome to the Feature Spotlight webinar for October 2024. We've got a bit to talk about today, so let me share my screen so that we can get directly into it. So today, I have two main things I want to talk about. There's a couple of enhancements that are coming to the product that will be available fairly well. Most of them fairly soon. One of them a little longer term thing. And then we have some bug fixes that we need to talk about, as well as some other improvements that we're making internally in our processes. Let's start off with some enhancements, and let's start off with some near-term enhancements. As you may know, we've updated Process Director to use the Microsoft Modern Authentication, which is Microsoft's version of the OAuth standard for authenticating to Azure resources, so that we can do SMTP email via Office 365 using Microsoft's Modern Authentication. Now, we do have at least one customer that does everything exclusively via Google. And so we are also implementing Google's flavor of OAuth in the product as well. This is not just going to be in the product, but it is also going to include the BP email import utility, so that you will be able to use both the product and BP email import to monitor and import email messages from any Google system. This troubleshooting live stats should actually be something new. We'll get to that in just a second. It seems to have been indented improperly, my fault. But let's take a look at the Google OAuth system, because it is different from the way that Microsoft implements it. I'm not going to say that Google's implementation is goofy, but it's a little goofy. So on the installation settings page, if you go down to the SMTP authentication type, in addition to Microsoft or OAuth or Office 365, there is now Google OAuth. Now, here's where it gets a little weird. There is a property here. It's called SMTP JSON. Somewhere in your Google Developer Console, and you'll have to excuse me, I've never done this personally, so this is information that I'm relaying to you kind of secondhand. So this is the best of my understanding of how it works. But somewhere in the Google Developer Console, you'll be provided with a JSON package that contains all of the authentication attributes that you need other than your user ID to get into the OAuth system via Google. You're going to need to copy this JSON package, and you're going to have to paste it here in the SMTP JSON property in order to have all of the appropriate authentication properties that you need that are contained in this package to get passed to Google in order to enable you to authenticate. In addition to that, you will need an SMTP user ID. This is usually the email inbox address. So, my.name@gmail.com, I think would usually be the email address. Although, of course, with Google, you can have your own custom domains. So Gmail is kind of working in the background, but you have your own domain. So whatever the email address is, that's the user ID that you would need to input. Once again, this is not an editable field by default anymore, because of the protection that we have thrown into the product to prevent password managers like LastPass from inadvertently changing these values just whenever you open the page, because LastPass wants to be helpful. So in order to make LastPass less helpful, we have the Modify SMTP User ID button. You'll need to click that in order to make this an editable field so that you could enter your values. And of course, you can click the button again to editify that particular field. So you need those two things. You'll need the JSON package. That'll just be copied and pasted directly from Google. And then you'll need to put in the SMTP user ID. With that, you'll be able to use Google resources in order to send email. Google is a little late to the game in getting OAuth implemented. They are just now beginning to require OAuth for SMTP. They didn't do that before, but they're finally changing, coming in a little bit after Microsoft, which did it last year. Google is going to be enforcing it this year. So we are going to be adding that to the product in the very near future. I believe this will be available in .300. Not entirely sure. There are still some wrinkles that we're working out in the background, but at least the UI portion is done. And from the testing we've done, we've been able to connect with Google and get the OAuth to work. So like I said, there's a couple of little wrinkles in the background that we're still working out. So there's a couple of Jira tickets that are not quite yet complete, but we're working on that in order to get Google OAuth to work properly. Next, we have a new feature in troubleshooting. It is called Live Stats. What this feature will provide is system health checks on the system that are shown to you in near real time. So if we go to the troubleshooting section of IT admin, there is a new button here. It will be called Live Stats. When you click on it, it will be empty at first. We're going to have to wait a couple of seconds for the live stats to invoke because they sort of run on a recurring basis. But once they start, we should be able to see them pop up here and start scrolling down. I was hoping that they would start faster, but finally, here they come in. So here are our HTTP request counters statistics. So we can see when this started to run. And of course, now you can see it's running on a recurring basis, and it'll start to fill this text box rather inconveniently because it keeps scrolling. So what we're seeing here are basically some times for how long all of this stuff is taking to happen. It is in exponential notation, unfortunately, in some areas of it. While this scrolling is, let's pause. So pausing is helpful because I can stop it from reporting and thus stop it from scrolling. So we can actually see how long it's taking basically in seconds to retrieve a result. Now, some of these are very, very, very fast. And so they're being shown up in exponential notation, in this case with 5 decimal points. So it's 0. So it's 0.0000361 seconds that this is happening. So some of them, of course, you can see in just normal time. These are just in 1/1000ths of a second. So basically 16 10,000ths of a second is how long this is happening. And you can just resume this and it will just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling away, or you can pause it as I did just a second ago. You can also hit the clear button to just clear out that cache. And so what we're doing is we're just keeping these running statistics so that we can see how long it's taking various recurring functions to happen in the system. This will give us a better handle on system performance moving forward. And it will largely be something that our engineering team uses whenever you put in support tickets that says, my system is a little slow, something is going on. We'll be able to go in and take a look at this. If you're an on-premise customer, of course, we might ask you to copy and paste this stuff and stick it in a support ticket, but it will give us some sense of how things are going on the system. I don't believe that these are all of the stats that will ultimately be available here. This is just a sort of a cutting edge version of 6.1.300 that I updated yesterday. So presumably this is going to become a little bit more verbose over time as we throw in some other counter statistics, but this will enable you to at least get some idea of how quickly things are running. I should actually point out that this is kind of related to one of the things that we have, and we'll come back to enhancements, but one of the things that we have down here at the very bottom on bug fixes where it says many technical debt issues. Technology has changed quite a bit since Process Director was first released all the way back in 2007 for version 1. It's been around for a while, and the technology and architecture on which the product was eventually built is no longer really valid. Because of the changes to the new technology, there are much more efficient and better ways to do things now. So one of our primary impetuses in each of our sprints is to go back and look at some of these technical debt issues. That's what we call them. It's time and cost that have been invested in a technology that has now changed and that needs to be upgraded. So we're doing a lot of work in terms of increasing the efficiency of the system, getting rid of extraneous code that is no longer needed because there are faster, simpler, more direct ways of getting stuff done. And so as part of addressing this technical debt, we are looking very seriously at product performance. And so this live stats is kind of an outgrowth of that technical debt resolution effort in order to make the system work faster, more reliably, and also to give us a better idea in terms of statistics that get reported as to how various portions of the system are working and how quickly they're working and how quickly they're executing commands. So again, the live stats is still a work in progress, but hopefully it's something that we can have done in version 6.1.300, may be delayed a little bit. I'm not entirely sure. And it may change over time because this technical debt effort that we're engaged in is a long-term ongoing thing. The provision users custom task is being updated, and it is being updated in order to enable you to use or to set multi-factor authentication whenever you are provisioning new users in the system. So again, if we go back and we look into the system, and I had made and I've now forgotten where I did it. I think I did it on this test form here, documentation. I believe this is where I implemented it. Let's go ahead and look at the custom task tab. Yes, this is where I did it. Provision users. So we'll open up our configuration screen for provision users. And let me resize it here so that we can see it just a little bit better. And right down here at the very bottom, we have added the require MFA property so that whenever you are provisioning users on your system, you can set in this case, a form control, which would presumably be a checkbox that you could turn on to require MFA whenever you are provisioning users on your system via the custom task. So there's a little caveat that I have to throw out here with this custom task. I want you to pay close attention to the custom task version. The first custom task version that implements MFA is 2024-09-26. So as you can see, this updated version of the custom task is at this point about a week and a half old. So it's very new. Now here is the issue. This custom task is only going to work with 6.1.300. It will not work with any earlier version. Normally, our custom tasks are not version specific. Generally, custom tasks are always backward compatible so that there is a single custom task download. You can download all those custom tasks and you can be relatively assured that they will work properly on your system. Provision users with this version number that's listed right here is not going to be backwards compatible because in any version prior to 6.1.300, there are no available properties for the MFA. They simply don't exist. So if you try to run this custom task on any earlier version of Process Director, it's not going to work. It's going to fail out. Unfortunately, what that means is we're going to need to have two concurrent versions running of this custom task. So I've brought this up with the engineering team. What we will probably end up having to do is on the downloads page of the support site, we'll probably have to have two download links for two different custom tasks packages. And one will be for 6.1.300, which will include this version of the provision users custom task, and the other will be an earlier version. Alternatively, what we might do is just keep the old version in the custom task package. And I think this might be simpler and more comprehensible. We'll have to have a separate download for this specific custom task. So if you are going to run 6.1.300, you're going to need to download, of course, the regular custom tasks, be sure that those are all updated, but you'll also need to download this specific custom task separately and then install it individually onto your system inside the users folder or the users subfolder of the custom task folder, so that you get the MFA capability in that custom task. Now, the old custom task will work on 6.1.300. It'll work just fine. The only thing you won't be able to do with it, of course, would be to turn on MFA when you provision a user. So if you're not interested in using MFA and you feel that you can live without that, and you still want to provision users, but you're not going to use MFA, then the old version of the custom task will run fine. It simply doesn't reference MFA, and so it'll just work. Nothing bad will happen. But the reverse is not true. So the old version, I guess technically you would have to say the old version is technically forward compatible. The new version will not be backward compatible. So we're going to have to work out some sort of system to make that work properly for you. A longer term issue is the collaborative document authoring. Currently, we use a service called OnlyOffice to provide CDA. And in fact, we can take a look at that right here because I've already got it teed up, or at least I did right here with this form instance. Keep in mind, this is not a fully licensed version of the product for CDA. It kind of works. It works well enough for demo purposes, but it is going to give us a little bit of a problem whenever we click on the edit button. It is going to open up the OnlyOffice screen, but it's going to tell me that this can't be edited. So I'm going to have to do a couple of little gyrations here so that we can see the document. Now the document is here. Don't really want to download it, but this is what OnlyOffice looks like. Now, OnlyOffice is great. It does pretty much everything that you want to do in terms of collaborative editing documents. It saves your changes automatically. You can run track changes. You can accept changes. You can do all of the editing that you want, and it's fine. However, this is a third-party service. It is OnlyOffice. And some customers have expressed some interest in not using OnlyOffice because they would like to keep their documents basically fully inside their Azure environment. And so in order to do that, we are now working on a fundamental change to CDA. Oh, excuse me, had to sneeze there. We're working on a fundamental change to CDA so that rather than using OnlyOffice, we are building a system to enable us to use Office 365. So whenever you click the edit button on a document attachment like I just did, instead of opening up OnlyOffice, it will actually open that document up via your Office 365 installation in Azure. That way you're keeping the document entirely in-house inside your Azure installation. You don't have to worry about a third party in case that was a worry. It is with some because they often deal with very proprietary things, and so they want to keep it in-house. So we have started working on using Office 365 for CDA as an option. In most cases, of course, the primary option is still going to be only Office. However, this will be an additional option for those that want it. Now, note that this is under the heading longer term because this is a longer term project. We're really just starting off on this. We've had some initial success. We're figuring out exactly what has to be sent to Azure, how those documents have to be created, how the permissions have to be set up so that we can allow collaborative editing via O365. And so all of those little wrinkles need to be worked out, but we are working on that as an enhancement so that you will have the option of using either only Office or Office 365 for CDA. And most people perceive, rightly or wrongly, I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but some people perceive that use of O365 inside their Azure installation is a more secure solution. So in order to meet that request, we are going to be implementing that as a longer term enhancement to the product. So that will be coming in the not too distant future. So that's it for enhancements. Let's talk about bug fixes. 6.1.x had some problem with cases and case properties, two major issues. Case properties were not enforcing unique values, and this was not a problem if you only used a unique value. But if you used a unique value and you encrypted that value, it wasn't enforcing the unique values. Well, I mean, technically it was, but it was evaluating the encrypted values, not the actual value that was being stored. So technically you could store a value of 1 in one instance, and it would be encrypted and would have its encrypted value. And then in, the next day in another instance, you could also store the value of 1. It would be encrypted, but obviously because it was encrypted on a different date and time and the encryption seed would be different, the encrypted value would not be the same, even though the base value was. And so having a case property that was both encrypted and unique was failing out because we were actually evaluating the encrypted value, not the actual base value. So we addressed that and fixed that. There was another issue with conditions on case instances. The conditions weren't working as expected, including contains and do not and does not contain. And again, this was complicated if you were encrypting the field. We were simply not reading the base values. We were looking at the encrypted values. And so we've had to ensure that we handle encryption properly and also conditions properly so that we can have case properties that have unique and encrypted values and that will respond properly to conditions. So we've managed to fix that on case instances. A weird display issue that not everybody sees, but the workspace navigation bar would disappear. So whenever you were inside a workspace, let me go ahead and close that form and actually go inside a workspace. Let's go with advanced training. So here there's nothing in advanced training but travel requests. Let me go to a user profile. There's more stuff there. So I have all of these navigation buttons and they're great in this particular workspace, but there was a CSS display issue where you'd actually see the user profile, or in this case, what would be the user profile workspace, but what you wouldn't see are any navigation buttons. They wouldn't be displayed. So that was a minor CSS display issue that we managed to fix. And another one was with item action CT. This has to do with how we were working with caching in the system and caching values and using cached values. And the item actions CT was not renaming promptly. This was especially noticeable if you were running the item action CT and then immediately after that we're running item actions to store or export to file system or something to store a renamed file. Well, what was happening was the file was being saved, so you're like exporting it to file system. It would be exported, but it was being exported with the old name, the name that existed before the item actions CT ran. Ultimately, the item actions CT would rename it, but it simply wasn't renaming it fast enough because it was getting caught up in the caching system that we implemented. And so we had to fix that so that whenever you rename something with item action CT, the renaming occurred immediately so that if your next activity was, an immediate call to say file to file system, the item would have already been renamed prior to that custom task being invoked and the file being saved, which means the file now gets saved with its changed name, the new name that you gave it in the item actions CT. Another weird thing that came up, and you probably didn't run into it, although clearly someone did or we wouldn't have known about it, is that if you have a non-field property form and you tried to save the form in the online form designer, it wouldn't save. So there's a number of form controls that don't have they don't have a field properties dialog box. Like usually whenever you click on a input control, in this case, you can always go over to the field properties and you can see all of the field properties. Well, not everything has field properties. I believe we go to layout and we drop in an embedded section end. Embedded section end doesn't have field properties. There's nothing configurable for that control. It really is a placeholder control. So the weirdness was if I had one of these types of controls, I believe end array is another control that has no field properties tab. And if you had this selected, whenever you hit the save button in your form, it simply wasn't saving the form. Because it was looking for that field properties tab to ensure that all of the appropriate field properties got saved with the form. It couldn't find that field properties tab. And so it was erroring out and it wasn't saving. If you didn't have the control selected, everything saved fine. And as you can see now, of course, everything is saving fine too. But everything would say fine as long as you didn't have the control selected. So if you had embedded section end or array end, and I think there's one or two others that don't have a field properties tab in the dialog, it would just prevent the form from being saved. We've cleared that out, and now the form saves properly as you just saw. Of course, many technical debt issues. We've talked about that previously in terms of the stats, so I'm not going to cover that any further. And finally, a special item. It's not really a bug, but it's kind of a bug prevention thing, and that is QA testing. Based on our release experience with version 6, we are implementing a much more rigorous and comprehensive testing plan for new releases. The product really has gotten so complex and it does so many things that it's very difficult from the developer's perspective to even know sometimes whether a change to feature A is going to affect existing feature B. There are a lot of dependencies that are difficult to find in the product because they've sort of accreted over the past 17, 18 years. And it's very difficult to know how some of the architecture works. Since that is so, we are going to be implementing much more rigorous QA testing for releases in the future. We're building test plans and automated test plans. We've hired QA engineers in order to oversee that QA project so that we can run the product, new releases of the product through a more rigorous QA system so that we can get a more holistic set of testing results so that we can hopefully track down some of these rather obscure dependencies that might cause bugs on a release, track them down and have them fixed prior to a release rather than after a release. There's no specific item that I can point to or show you because all of this testing is being done in-house. It is largely being automated via some testing tools. And so I don't really have anything I can show you about that. All I can do is tell you that QA testing is a high priority item with us as we move forward to ensure that future releases run a little smoother than the 6.1.x release cycle has run, so that we can be reasonably assured that new versions will operate as expected right out of the box. So with that, we are done. That is all I had to cover with you today. As always, I thank you for your time. I look forward to speaking with you next month for those of you who attend Spotlight webinars, and on Thursday for those of you who attend the training webinars. Until then, have a great week. So long.